I want to talk about something many people aren't talking about, and that is IBD and sex. This is such an important topic that your gastroenterologists often don't bring up and that many patients don't talk about. Well, here is the data. Roughly 45 to 60% of women suffer from some sort of sexual dysfunction, and this is IBD patients. This is compared to the general population, in which 30% of women suffer from sexual dysfunction. So in general, us women with IBD have a 15 to 30% higher chance of suffering from sexual dysfunction, whereas in men, roughly 15 to 25% of men with IBD suffer from some type of sexual dysfunction. This is compared to 5% of their healthy cohorts. So what does this mean? This also means that men with IBD have a 10 to 20% higher chance of suffering from some sort of sexual dysfunction. So what does this mean? It means you're not alone. We are not alone. Many of us are suffering in silence, and it is time that that stops because, again, we as patients suffer enough. It is hard when we cannot control our bowels. It is so hard to not have control of our bodies. So the last thing that we need to do is think that something is wrong with us because we are having trouble having sex, we are having trouble enjoying sex, we are having trouble even wanting to have any drive to have sex or find a partner to have sex with. And so what are things that may affect our overall sexual quality of life? Well, for one, many IBD patients, particularly women, have negative body image, self-perception. So this could mean you're on prednisone and you have puffed up, you are bloated and you don't feel like having sex, or you have lost a massive amount of weight and you don't feel well, or you've had some sort of surgical procedure that you don't feel good about. And because of that, that may cause you to be less likely to have sex. Another one is just in general, reduce sex drive. Again, if you are running to the bathroom 10 to 20 times a day, if you're having bloody stool, if you have no energy, that can reduce your sex drive. Third, just sexual difficulties in general. For men, this can mean, erectile dysfunction. For women, it can mean, lack of lubrication and stuff like that. It's just things that are needed for the natural organic sex process to occur seems to be lacking sometimes in IBD patients. And again, that doesn't mean anything is wrong with you. It just means that we need to find strategies to overcome it. But in order to find strategies, we first have to talk about it. Lastly, problems with family relationships can also contribute to a lower sex drive. So this can mean not being able to communicate with your partner feeling frustrated with you because you don't want to have sex, you being frustrated with your partner for not understanding how you feel. So what can we do about this? We can talk about it. But here's the real, for me, when I read this stat, this was the real heartbreaker for me. Seriously, one survey found that 40%, okay, this is 40% of IBD patients reported that their disease prevented them from pursuing an intimate relationship. For me, this was so hard to read because, again, our lives are already hard enough. So to realize that 40% of IBD patients do not pursue a sexual relationship because of how they feel, it's an intimate relationship. And there is a difference between sexual relationships and intimate relationships. So sexual relationships, active intercourse, intimate relationships, that can be like bonding, cuddling, and yes, it can involve sex, but intimacy is a bit different. But 40% of patients just didn't feel well enough to even pursue an intimate relationship. We as IBD patients are less likely to have sexual satisfaction if we suffer from, surprise, surprise, depression and anxiety, which is why I'm such a huge advocate for mental health care. One study found that depression is responsible for sexual dysfunction more so than inflammatory bowel disease itself. This really, really underscores the importance of mental health care. When you bottle everything up and you don't feel good about yourself, you are having trouble, you're thinking something's wrong with you because either, again, you suffer from erectile dysfunction, you maybe have issues with lubrication if you're a female, things like that. We can think that something is wrong with us, which, it's depressing. But then we keep that to ourselves. We don't communicate with our partner. Perhaps our partners get frustrated with us, or we don't even have a partner, but we're like, what's the point in going out and finding one because, well, I'm broken? No, this is when you need to get mental health care. And you also need to talk to your doctor about it, because they can refer you to a doctor that may help. So depression has been found in inflammatory bowel disease patients. Depression is associated with problems orgasming, erectile dysfunction, and reduced sexual desire and sexual satisfaction. Again, which is why I'm such an advocate for mental health care. And again, just to underscore what I said and to repeat, it's no surprise that studies suggest that being depressed is the most important factor associated with decreased sexual functioning in IBD patients instead of the actual disease itself. So friends, please talk about it openly if you can. Explain to your partner that though you may not feel well or you may not feel good enough for sex itself, you can be intimate. If you're a male, I am not a male. First of all, you know this, but I am a female, and I can tell you that if you explain to your partners that, you're not feeling well, but you cuddle them, you like caress their hair, like things like that, you have like a movie night with them, with cuddling, whatever, all that stuff goes a long way. There are ways that you can be intimate that don't involve sex, that still allow you all to be close together. And women, listen, you have got to talk to your partner if you do not feel like well enough, right? Or if you're having issues. And if your partner is an asshole about it, and this is for both men and women, if you are with a partner that is not understanding, then you need to find a different partner. Because again, as IBD patients, we need support. It is so important that we have support from those that we are intimate and have a sexual relationship with. If that is not a fostering environment for us, then we have got to move on, because that may contribute to us being more depressed, which is something that we don't need to begin with. Now, you may ask, well, what is the difference between patients who suffer from Crohn's disease and patients who suffer from ulcerative colitis? Is there a difference in their sex drives? The truth is, there is not a lot of studies on actually the difference in Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis patients. However, there is a very small Danish study. It had about 605 IBD patients. 196 of these patients had 196 of these patients had Crohn's disease, and 409 patients had ulcerative colitis. This was a study in women, and what they found is that when compared to their healthy counterparts, women with ulcerative colitis did not have a significantly decreased sexual function. However, women with Crohn's disease had a harder time climaxing during orgasm. Does this mean this is like for the entire patient population? No. I like to discuss studies as just a small needle in an overall haystack. It is just adding to the body of evidence. But at this time, we don't have enough studies to say that for certain, right? But it is just what one study found in the Danish population, and I thought it was interesting to discuss. But what all studies, whether it be in the Portuguese population, whether it be in the Polish population, whether it be in the Puerto Rican population, is that depression is strongly associated with problems, orgasming, with erectile dysfunction, with reduced sexual desire and reduced sexual satisfaction. And they found that depression impacts our sexual drive more and causes more sexual dysfunction than our actual disease, than the actual disease of Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis. So again, if you are suffering from sexual dysfunction, you don't feel like having sex, you don't have a drive, you don't feel like being intimate, talk to your doctor about it, get referred to a mental health care provider. And gastroenterologists, you need to start talking about this with your patients. Like, I have never in my IBD career had a gastroenterologist ask me, hey, Emma, how's your sex life going? Well, it's time to start talking about it, because again, when they look at big quality of life surveys on a scale, sex is actually a huge part of that. So we need to start having this discussion instead of shying away from it, because guess what? IBD patients are people too who have like sexual desires and needs. And interestingly enough, compared to the general population, IBD patients are just as interested in sex, but they are less likely to go through the action of sex or intimacy. Okay, and that's because many of us are suffering in silence. So I think this is a conversation that has to be had, in between doctors and mental health care providers. We can develop a healthy sexual life, and it's important for all of us. And so if you are suffering with any type of sexual dysfunction, know that there are many patients just like you, and we don't have to suffer alone. So please, I cannot advocate enough. See your doctor, see a mental health care provider, and find tools and strategies to help you have a healthy sexual relationship, and be open with your partner. Do not be embarrassed. Communicate with your partner. And if they get mad or they don't understand, then perhaps it is time to find a different partner, because what you need right now is support, not somebody to judge you, not somebody to make you feel less than, not somebody that makes you feel embarrassed. So on that note, if you guys have any questions, please reach out to me. I'll be happy to talk with you. I do read all of my messages, so know that you're not alone. I hope you all have a great day. This is only one of many IBD and sex topics, because I would like to discuss each study one by one, because I do find that they are interesting. But I hope you all have a great day.